Good afternoon.
Good
Namaste and Vanakkam.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, nice. Sorry, we couldn't continue quickly, and there was a small break. But nevertheless, we will continue from where we left off. So our last discussion was on the resources that an organization uses. They identify and mobilize and allocate and deploy the resources in order to engage in their value addition processes to produce the results or outputs or outcomes, as the case may be. Okay. So we discussed about the 5 basic resources: human resources, financial resources, technology, infrastructure, and material resources, then organizational and managerial resources, and finally, networks and relationships. We also discussed each resource in terms of the characteristics that the resource possesses and how they can be used or leveraged by the organization. So we have sort of looked at the idea of management by design and have attempted to answer the first question: state what you want to do, at the start time, and state what will be accomplished at the end time using the value addition process, the efforts. So we have on the outcome side, mission, vision, objectives, and goals, and on the input side, the resources, which we talked of now. Okay. Now, the second question, state why you want to do, is an interesting question. Okay. State why you want to do what you want to do. Okay. The one answer is, what is the purpose of the organization? We say it's the mission and so on. But one could step back and ask another question: but why choose that kind of a mission? Now, that is where we come to a very useful and important topic that should connect with you. You would have learnt about this topic earlier too. Okay, this is the SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis. Okay. So we will study about this. So we have I'm arranging them in a certain way so that you will understand the combination of these things. Okay. So we have strengths and weaknesses. People sometimes do not prefer to use the term weakness. Sometimes they use a softer term, limitations, and sometimes people say areas of improvement. That's okay. It just depends on your orientation, and it really doesn't. I wouldn't like to split hairs on that. If you wish to use a positive sounding term, you could consider using areas of improvement. Nevertheless, I'm using a standard terminology. This is what is known as the SWOT analysis and the TOWS matrix, TOWS, TOWS matrix. We'll sort of discuss this a bit. Now, strengths correspond to what resources, I mean, it's always in terms of resources. Okay? The resources, the resource-based view of organizations enables you to focus on strengths and weaknesses in terms of your internal resources. And always threats and opportunities are in the environment, external to the organization. Okay? So we have the internal ones placed along the columns, weaknesses and strengths, and the external one placed along the rows, threats and opportunities. Okay? So these are always based on resources. So we did discuss this earlier. If we start with human resources, this is an analysis which one can do in detail for any organization, and even for a function in an organization, like the maintenance function. Okay. It is not difficult. You can do this, and you will find that this analysis is being done or has been done even at the level of a country, a whole country's SWOT analysis. You can do it for IPL teams, you can do it for ministries and so on. So this is a generic kind of a frame that we can use to analyze what are the things that an organization could engage in. This sort of provides a justification. So one could always present the argument that I am engaging in this value addition process because I'm strong, and typically because there's an opportunity also. So we are looking at that kind of a combination always. We are also strong on certain aspects and there are opportunities. So let's get into this value addition business. So that is the basis for an organization's choice of what it engages in, what it does, what are the outputs it plans to produce, and so on. Okay. Strengths, if you look at human resources, strengths, as I told you, will boil down to physical and mental strengths. Okay. And if we look at character, we can associate it with the mind, okay, and the mind-body interaction. So that is very important for us to understand. So we have many bodily strengths. Strengths does not necessarily correspond to only energy that can be produced by a person in a certain situation. It also relates to certain other capabilities. So I'm using the term capabilities now. So we always differentiate between capability and capacity, and abilities, capabilities, and capacities, etc. So capacity normally connotes the maximum or upper bound of what can be done. Sometimes capability is used as a variable with a range, an average and a max and a min and so on. Capacity normally talks of an upper bound. Like you say, what is the capacity of this bottle? What's the capacity of this room? Or what's the capacity of an auditorium in which people can be seated? So it connotes a maximum. Whereas capability is usually in terms of action. And we talk of what is the average capability of a person, the stretch capability, the max capability, the min capability, and so on. Ability is generally denoted as something binary. Are you able to do or not able to do? So I will give a simple example. Suppose we consider a person who is lame, who cannot walk ordinarily. Then we will ask the question: will the person be able to walk or to run? So it's a 0-1 kind of a thing, binary. I'm just giving you some normally accepted classifications of these. So ability is binary. Are you able to do or you're not able to do? So once a person is able to do something, then we talk of capability. So suppose I ask this question: will this person without legs be able to walk? I know you might consider it a stupid question because obviously the answer is no, but we just to explain the concept, you say no, the person is not able to walk. But I can ask the same question in a slightly different way and ask, is the person able to move? Can the person move his or her body? So then you come to the answer ordinarily, yes, the person is able to move his or her body. Then you come to the question of capability. So what is the average speed at which the person can move? So many meters per minute, something like that. So I hope you understood the subtle difference between ability and capability. In many other cases also there are differences. I hope you recall some of those fine terms that we had discussed earlier. We'll revisit them sometime as we go along. Okay? I hope you are clear about the concept of ability, capability, and capacity. Okay? So strengths normally refer to the average capabilities that are there in individuals and teams. As a team, what is their capability? Okay? See, for example, if you look at what's happening in IPL, and if you ask the question, what is the average capability in terms of runs that can be scored by, let's say, CSK? In this IPL, you would say the average capability looks like somewhere near 150, 160. Okay, maybe if you are generous, you might say 170. Okay. This season. Okay, I hope you are clear. So you say that's the average. So what's their max capability? Oh, max capability could be even 200, 210. So what's their stretch capability? Maybe they can hit about 220, 230. What's their min capability? Well, as we see the record, minimum they should score at least 100 runs. So this is what we mean by capability. Or you can even say what is the capability of, what's the maximum wicket taking capability for a bowler, and so on. So this is what is meant by capability. And as I told you, it's not necessarily in terms of the energy that can be generated, but it's also in terms of the energy that can be directed to perform certain actions. I did mention this to you. Nimbleness of fingers can be the strengths of a member of a maintenance crew. How nimble are your fingers? How sensitive is your body to touch? That can be a strength. How sensitive is your nose? How sensitive is your ear? Can you sense some sounds which ordinarily others don't observe? Are your ears tuned to those kind of sounds? In maintenance, as we discussed earlier, these strengths could matter. Now, these are bodily strengths, they are physical. The strengths of the nose in terms of its power to smell, the strengths of the ear, the power to hear, and so on. So I hope you understand this concept of strength. It's not necessarily in terms of how much load you can lift or how long can you push something, the endurance, etc. In fact, endurance itself is a strength. Similarly, there are mental strengths that we talk about. Concentration. I mean, this is something which each one of you, I would strongly advise you to evaluate yourself. Just check. You can sort of experiment with yourself. I always say in life there's something very interesting about ourselves. Because we can experiment with ourselves. We are the experimental apparatus. We are the experimental procedure. And we are the experimental readings. We are the experimental results. We are the experimental documents. In fact, to put it in a wholesome way, we are the experiments. We signify the experiments, including the experimental environment. So the entire laboratory is with us, if you want to put it that way, either when we are talking of body or when we are talking of mind. So this is an important idea. So when we talk of strengths, you can sort of experiment with yourself on your mental strengths. How long can you focus on something? How long can you concentrate? How good is your vocabulary? How large is your vocabulary? How fluent are you in speaking? Of course, it's a body-mind combination, because loudness of voice is also a strength for a person depending on the situation. Sometimes strengths can be in terms of, when you talk of team strengths, sometimes communication through non-verbal means could be a very great strength, through sign language. I hope you understand. There are certain situations where sign language would be warranted. You will not be in a situation to voice what you want to say. You might be in a, for example, in a military situation, you might find situations, you might find instances where you might have to continue with your partner, with your fellow soldier, using sign language, because you don't want somebody to hear. So these are all strengths. I'm just giving you a variety of examples so that you understand the concept of human strengths. Because ordinarily, when you go and talk to somebody, that person is very strong, the mental model then is of a person who can lift weights, or who can pull something, push something, etc. But that's a very limited view. I hope this brief discussion with you clarifies to you that strengths are more than that kind of effort that a person puts with some weights, lifting or pushing or pulling, or and so on. So that is important. Are we clear about strengths? Physical strengths and mental strengths?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes,
good.
sir.
I would really like you to work out by yourself. It's not homework or anything. Just try. You can be aided. You can even take the dictionary and find out how many words will relate to your mental strengths. I gave you some examples. Concentration of your mind, imagination, speed of arithmetic calculations. Are you understanding? Sense of beat, sense of melody, okay, sense of critique, all of these can be strengths. So like this, you can identify many strengths related to the maintenance function. Try doing this because your clarity will improve a lot, significantly, okay. Please try to identify what are these physical and mental strengths that human resources in the maintenance function should possess. Okay. Similarly, you can understand financial strengths, your strengths in terms of cash in hand, your strengths in terms of the cash flow, your strengths in terms of accounting accuracy, and so on. There are many strengths connected with your financial resources, okay. The capital that you have, in fact even the sundry debtors that could be a strength. They are external to you, but if you have good debtors, I mean they pay on time and they pay correctly, is a very good strength for the organization likewise, okay. And also when you are given some strength by your supply chain, where you are given some good credit terms, it becomes an indirect strength for you. I hope you understand. Likewise for technology, I did mention functional capabilities and so on. So we're not going to run through all that right now. We even discussed the strengths in terms of organizational and managerial resources, comprehensiveness. I hope you recall that discussion, reliability and reach and all that stuff. So that is how you evaluate your strengths. Now you might ask a question, sir, what about a startup? I'm just about to start my business, so I'm not going to have all the human resources with me. At best, I may have a team of 2 or 3 people. So yes, those strengths are dynamic. So even when you look at the world of startups, you have to understand the human strengths that will be with you, and all the strengths that we listed. And I'm sure you agree with me, the external strength of networks and relationships is very critical for startups. I hope you understand. Financial strengths are very critical. Organizational managerial strengths are definitely important, but not as critical as your financial strengths and your networks and relationships at the early stages. Later on, of course, the formalisms of the organizations will start taking deep roots, because when you grow, you have to become more and more formal in your dealings. The informality that would characterize human relationships in startups will not exist when the organization grows beyond a certain point. You cannot afford, simply because you won't have time. The variety of information that you as a leader of as a major promoter of the startup, the variety of information you have to handle will be very, very large. And remember, capacities, the concept of capacity will come in there. Very often work and authority delegation happens. I hope you understand, responsibility cannot be delegated, authority can be delegated. Because if I delegate my authority to somebody to do something, the responsibility is still mine. So the final accountability is mine. So this is very, very important. And there is an ethics in fixing responsibility on somebody. You can't just like that fix responsibility on somebody and then say, no, that person is responsible, therefore accountable. Please understand, anybody holding primary responsibility in a particular situation also holds the primary accountability for the results. So you can't thrust responsibility on somebody who is not the right person and then claim that that person is also accountable. There can be situations where that becomes very, very complicated. And unfortunately, sometimes we have people sitting in judgment on ethics without understanding the simple rules and principles to be followed for fixing the ethics in terms of responsibility. Who is responsible for something? Okay. So these are very important things for us to consider. That's also a strength of the mind. Character, strength of character, truthfulness, promptness, all these things happen. So when you're promoting a startup, these things become very important, because even if you delegate authority, you still hold the responsibility. So you have to judge your strengths in terms of your small team in the beginning and its capabilities. The finances that you have access to, usually due to your networks and relationships, and what you can do with it. Your supply chain, whatever it is. So all these things would matter in your strengths. I hope this point is clear. So then you use the argument, I am strong in what I'm doing and I have an opportunity, I've discovered an opportunity, let me get going. I will just give you a parallel so that you understand. Take one of the very good startups in the world, Airbnb. Of course, now during Corona time, I think they've got a severe knock. That's what I've been reading about in general. But it's a very interesting organization. I'm sure all of you would have heard of Airbnb. So they would have quickly understood something of why go to Airbnb? Let's come closer to home. Ola taxi. Okay. So I'm talking of a startup earlier. Go back a few years when Ola was being launched and started to operate their taxi services. I'm sure they didn't have a huge organization at that time. I'm sure they didn't have all the kind of technology resources they have, but they knew what they were doing. They knew what they could access. They knew what they could control. And then they start the services. And remember, that is what you call a complete disruptive innovation. It sort of changes, incremental innovation, disruptive innovation, breakthrough innovation. There are types of innovation. Ola can be classified as a disruptive innovation. At least some authors do that. Let me put it that way. It sort of disrupts the market. It changes the structure of the market. We normally say breakthrough innovation when the product or the service creates a totally new market. It doesn't significantly alter an existing market. It creates a totally new market. Okay. For example, mobile phones versus landlines. It creates a totally new market. Yeah, the need for communications is always there, but you're giving such a significantly different functionality. Take your signals where you go. Now that you call as, at least whatever little I have read, I would say that will be termed as a breakthrough innovation. It's the creation of a new market. So there I'm discussing all this because you have to judge the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. Now, do you agree if I share with you that there is a market today? There is a potential for a market, potential. Okay. I'm not talking of an existing market. I don't know whether it's already there, for holographic projections. All of you know what are holographic projections. Like suppose I want to talk to my grandchild now. I have some device by which I can get a projection of my grandchild, and the signal also goes to my grandchild, and the grandchild also has something whereby the grandchild can respond to me. Let's say it's my granddaughter or my grandson. I send a signal and they say, yeah. So I get their holographic projection and my holographic projection goes there. Now, I'm just giving you an example of that kind of a technology. So it is a breakthrough. It's a totally different market now. Then we are not talking of the need for communication. That always existed. We're talking of how that need is articulated in a particular market. Okay. So I hope you got this idea, okay? And how the notion of strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats are critical. So I'm sure you can do that kind of an analysis. You can also check, is there a market for good maintenance services? It looks like yes. We have a company, I didn't know about this, honestly. We have this company called Urban Company, or some people call it Urban Clap, where they have some resources, they are aggregators. They sort of, aggregators mean they take the services from different talented people, they do their due diligence in terms of who they engage, and then they provide civil maintenance services, plumbing, electrical, painting, cleaning, whatever you want, in the domestic sector, in homes or even in offices. Now there's a market. So they sort of work it out in their minds. Is there a market? Do we have these organizational strengths? Can we rely on the resources that we have access to, which we can even control directly or indirectly? And then they go. So you can understand how important a foundation the SWOT analysis is for any business, whether it's a startup or even a mature company. Have you understood this concept? Have you understood why the SWOT analysis is very important. Of course, I've talked of only strengths. We'll come to this, weaknesses or areas of improvement very shortly. So can I be sure that you got a hang of this SWOT analysis?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So don't forget, strengths and weaknesses belong to you. Threats and opportunities are in your environment. And they can come from many sources. Threats and opportunities can come from many sources. They could be from competitors. They could be from regulatory agencies. They could be from the weather, okay, the place you are in. Suppose you are in a place with high seismic activity. Now, that's certainly a threat to your business. So, it's not necessarily only human beings, it could be the planetary systems also. What happens on the planet? If you are located near a place where there are huge, I mean, let's say where there are possibilities of wild animal attacks, isn't it? So all these things matter. Of course, people don't locate their facilities there. I was just trying to convince you with a little exaggeration, that's all. But it's possible to look at threats, especially if you're on the coast. In a country like Japan, tsunamis are not uncommon, or even in Indonesia, tsunamis are not uncommon there. They do happen. I mean, definitely more frequently, significantly more frequently than India. In India, we faced it in 2004, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so after that we didn't face. So like this, you have to look at the areas for improvement and opportunities and threats. Areas for improvement. So I'll ask a simple question. I would like you to please answer this, of course, in a fun way. Now, you've been watching IPL. I'm taking parallel examples. We can adapt them to maintenance also, except that since we are not on a level playing ground on maintenance, I'll stick to IPL. Hopefully, all of us are watching IPL. If as a critic of what's happening, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time I think CSK has gone to the bottom of the table, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think they were at the bottom of the table in the middle of the tournament in the past editions of the tournament. I may be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but this year they are clearly at the bottom of the table. So what do you think are there areas for improvement? Can anybody share? I mean, it's something we all like. No, cricket is a game many of us like. So can you share what in your observation would constitute areas of improvement? I'm not using the term weaknesses.
Sir, I think new youngsters are in the team.
Rishabh, this is a comment which has come, at least I believe some of my friends have shared with me, that there are lots of information and advice coming from social media, that why don't you draft youngsters? And I believe day before yesterday when they lost, Captain Dhoni had even given some answer to that, which people don't seem to accept. Okay, that's one area, Rishabh. So you say that's an area for improvement. Can you draft some more youngsters into the team? Because you're already, even last year or year before that, you were called Daddy's team, So anything else? Any other area of improvement?
So their fielding should be improved.
Okay, who said that, please?
Ariman.
Ariman, sorry, thank you. I couldn't notice Ariman. Yeah, fielding should improve. In fact, this IPL, I've been seeing a lot of dropped catches by many teams, and sometimes in Tamil we say lotta catch, I mean very easy catch being dropped, Sometimes that's also happening. I think you got the idea. So somebody is critiquing what's happening and is able to understand that, look, these are areas where the person can improve. Now, I'll ask you a question. Let's say you have a niece or a nephew who's studying in school, and you find that your niece or nephew is constantly fidgeting, constantly moving about. A kind of behavior which normally we associate with hyperactivity deficiency, hyperactivity syndrome. I mean, they're very, very active. So you would then point to them or your sister or your brother that, look, can you take care of this? I'm observing that your son or daughter is very, very hyperactive. So that's an area for improvement. So like this, there are many areas for improvement. If somebody meets me, they will say, LSG, a good area for improvement for you is your memory. You seem to be forgetting many things. Yeah, of course, I can assure you, I never work on selective memory. When I remember something, I say it. When I don't remember, I say I don't know. Of course, one can genuinely accuse me of selective memory, but I know that I don't do that. But that's all. You have to suffer the consequences. So sometimes all these things matter. You have to improve yourself on your memory. You have to improve yourself on your schedules on every day. I mean, your schedules are haywire. Somebody could say that, isn't it? Or somebody could say, you're saying yes to everything. You're just accepting. You don't know how to say no. So these are what we call as areas of improvement in the human context. I hope you understand these aspects. In management also, these are very, very important. For example, those of you who have worked might have either experienced or heard of micromanagers. You know, there are people who will micromanage your work. Now, that's an area for improvement for that manager, and somebody has to give the feedback. You know, every move you make, the person may say, why are you doing this? Why not this? What are you doing? Constantly breathing down your neck. Now, that's what you call as micromanagement. And then you say that's an area for improvement for that manager, isn't it? So this is very, very important. And please understand, it's not just at work. You can have micromanagement at home also. Sometimes you may have a parent or a sibling who does micromanagement with you, isn't it? Or you may do it with your own child. Out of your sheer great love and affection for your child, you may be overbearing on the child. That could happen. But that becomes an area of improvement. So are we clear about this, what we call as weaknesses and areas of improvement?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'll give you just one maintenance example. Suppose you are the manager in a maintenance function, you are the chief, and you're observing that the time between the receipt of a call for repairs and the response given by your team is in the order of 2 to 3 hours. Would you like to intervene or not? Consistently you're observing it. Let's say you've just taken over as the chief of the maintenance function in a large plant or in a large facility, hospital facility, because you're all being trained in clinical engineering. And in your data, you suddenly start observing the time between the receipt of a call for maintenance and the first response is of the order of 3 hours. What would you like to do then as a manager? Yeah, come on.
So give warnings to the staff.
Is it necessary immediately?
So,
we
yes, sir.
start giving warnings.
No, sir, not immediately, but
yeah, go ahead.
After
your
after
direction
1 or
of
2.
thought is correct, Akhilesh.
Yes, sir.
Your direction of thought is correct. I would
Yes,
agree
sir.
with you, but there are some analysis that you can do. What are
Yes,
those?
sir. And the reasons I will look after the reasons that are responsible for the delay.
So what are the likely reasons why 3 hours is the average delay?
So maybe maloperations of many devices are there, and simultaneously the staff is working on the previous malfunctions.
Very good. So it could vary from, do you agree that low staffing could be a reason for the delay, as you rightly said now?
Yes,
because you may actually need 5 maintenance crew and you're actually operating with only 2 people where you should have had 5. Now this is the kind of conflict that you could have on the field. You may actually, depending on the frequency with which you get maintenance requests, you will have to work, and the intensity of the maintenance required, plus your regular routine preventive maintenance schedules that you would have worked out in the clinic, in the large hospital, and you have only 2 people, and then you find that the calls for or the maintenance requests are coming at a frequency where the 2 people are woefully inadequate. They could be woefully inadequate not because they don't have the skills, but then the 2 people are just not enough to handle that frequency. So naturally the delay is bound to happen. So you will have to use those arguments properly. Now that's where your effectiveness as a manager will come into question. So when you're managing the clinic, the very large hospital, because somebody will ask you, and somebody may even complain to you. Let's say there's some other officer in the hospital who doesn't like you. I mean, all of us know there is politics everywhere. I always say everywhere there is good politics, bad politics, ugly politics, and evil politics. We'll talk about this much later. Okay. So there's somebody who's playing ugly politics with you, let's say, who's trying to stab you in the back at the first opportunity. So they will naturally go and complain to superior. What kind of a maintenance chief are we having? The guy doesn't understand, the response time is so much. But then you have to go with your data there, because ultimately data speaks. You know, there is this great saying, in God we trust, but give me the data. It's very humorous, because ultimately your data should speak. So you say, look, this is the frequency at which maintenance requests are coming, and don't hold me responsible for maintenance requests, because here is my preventive maintenance schedule. This is as per the manufacturer's recommendations, and we are going an extra mile. Now, what on earth are you guys talking about? How do you expect me to do this kind of a preventive maintenance schedule and meet the frequency of maintenance requests when I have 2 people? So please pipe down, you guys. I mean, you'll have to say that firmly, because here is the data. And you try doing this, tell me a different schedule otherwise, you know. So these are very important for us to understand. See, maintenance, you can't say, array, maximize availability, minimize cost. Yeah, that's very nice. But remember, you're working in an organizational environment. You're working in an environment where there are other people, there are other officers, especially in an environment where others may not like you, either due to their own self-interest or genuinely they don't like your face. So that is the larger environment you're working in. So obviously, in such an environment, your work as a manager should involve all this. You should be thorough. The strengths and areas for improvement, opportunity, threats should be on your fingertips. That's the kind of knowledge you should possess. And you should be curious to access that kind of knowledge. Curious in a positive sense. I'm not talking of curiosity killed the cat. I'm not talking of that. I'm saying in a very positive sense, you need that curiosity so that you have all this knowledge on your fingertips. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good. So
Sir.
I hope you're clear about strengths and weaknesses. Similarly, threats and opportunities. I did mention to you, threats and opportunities belong to the environment. Opportunities rise in the environment. Okay. And you can always try to find out what opportunities are for offering your products or your services. Remember, all great business people are people who leveraged opportunities. Sometimes we use the term they exploited opportunity. Here the word exploited is not used in an undesirable sense. It's a positive way. You exploit an opportunity. There's an opportunity, you leverage the opportunity, you take advantage of the opportunity. And opportunities are there. It's for you to tune in and find out whether they'll work for you, whether you can do something with that opportunity. Okay? I'm sure you will understand this. As you grow, as you develop yourself, you'll find that there are many opportunities in your mind. You can identify them, but it's not always that you want to leverage them. I've had many opportunities in my life to do this or do that, and I've willfully, deliberately said no. I may regret it 10 years later. I may say, why the hell? And sometimes things don't work for you also. Okay. But sometimes things don't work for you, and 10-15 years later you just thank God, and then you say, oh my God, thank you very much, that didn't work for me, because if it had worked, my life would have been miserable. But this is under the assumption that we are confident about what you're doing at a certain time. But with the truth is, how can you know what's going to happen in the future? None of us knows. But sometimes you have to play with the cards on your hand, isn't it? So opportunities and threats. Threats usually come from the competition and what they do. It's a business threat. Let me give you an example of a business threat. Let us take the whole business of daily utility consumable products. Toothpaste, soap, etc. Do you agree over the last few years there has been a change in the Indian market, consumer market? Come on.
Yes, sir.
What is the change you have observed, Aryama? Over the
Sir,
last say 2013, 14, 15, like that. Yeah.
sir, regarding toothpaste, if we talk about,
Yeah.
initially we were using most of the Unilever products like
Yes.
Pepsodent, Colgate, and all, and
Okay.
suddenly when this Baba Ramdev product came in,
Exactly. Because people are writing about it. Thank you, Aryaman. And suddenly one fine day, you find Baba Ramdev's, of course I'm naming because this is part of the marketing and business history in India. So there's nothing to hide here. So here is this organization, Baba Ramdev's organizations, which are producing these products, whether it's toothpaste or soap or many other products, certain oils, etc. And then they are marketing, saying that, look, these are Indian, they're Bharatiya, they come from Bharatiya tradition, they're based on certain deep knowledge about herbs and all those things, and they'll do the job for you. And then you say, wow. And people, the market grows for them. And not only that, if you look at the distribution network that they have built, it is astounding. By the way, I'm neither supporting nor against the organization. I'm neutral. I'm making an observation as a teacher. So suddenly you have a new rise. So Baba Ramdev and his team must have naturally identified, look, there is an opportunity for us. Let's leverage that opportunity. There is an opportunity that we can literally reach out to a market and leverage the market by our products which are based on Bharatiya traditions and knowledge. So let's go ahead. And yes, they succeeded to a very large extent, as the data would show. They did capture a large part of the market. But then do you agree, big companies like Unilever also started getting back Ved Shakti. So then they even advertise strongly. Just because you show 2 leaves doesn't mean you're talking Ayurveda. That's the advertisement. But that's okay. Do they have a business right to do that? Of course. Company has a right. So they are in competition. So for Unilever, those Baba Ramdev products were a business threat. I hope you understand. So we have those kind of threats happening. Very often you find this in a lot of consumer products, how business threat happens. Sometimes I find it strange. You even find very interesting and what you call as intriguing examples of co-opetition. And what is that co-opetition? You'll find competitors cooperating in a particular business context. You find examples of this. Just Google and check examples of co-opetition. And you might start laughing. How the hell are these guys cooperating? They are hard-nosed competitors. But they find that if they integrate their strengths in a particular context, both can win. So they start playing win-win games in the market. Co-opetition. So I hope you understand the idea of opportunities. Opportunities are basically dealt with in terms of resources that you can leverage and gain value for the company. Okay. For example, I'm just giving you a maintenance example. If you find that there are some maintenance services which would be more economical for you than you directly engaging in the maintenance activity, you might use that opportunity. This is what you know as the classic make or buy decision, or produce or subcontract decision. We face that, no? Suppose you find that the economics of subcontracting is better for you, then why should you engage in the production? You would rather subcontract. Similarly, make or buy. Should I make something or can I buy it off? So there are nice optimization models for this, for make or buy or produce or subcontract and so on. Please understand, in many cases maintenance is subcontracted, and you would have heard of AMCs, annual maintenance contract. It's not just in the B2C segment, the business to consumer segment. I have also known of cases where it's there in the B2B, the business to business segment, where a business subcontracts maintenance in a plant. I mean, I do have a couple of friends who are running their factories, and they say, Ganesh, we subcontract maintenance because for us that's more economical. And remember, in many cases, contracting is becoming more and more common nowadays for various reasons. Maybe the laws of the land are sort of channeling everybody to go into contracts. Just check what's happening in employment in many of our institutions, academic institutions, and the way they do research projects. You'll find a lot of project staff who are on contracts. They're not permanent employees of the institution. In fact, you will find one of the finest areas where you can observe easily where subcontracting or contracting has been done is the campus security. You can just verify what I'm saying. You'll go to any campus. In fact, welcome to IIT Madras, and you will see two types of security guards. One wearing khaki uniform, who are the employees of IIT Madras and the security section, and the others wearing blue uniform, who are contract guards. Now you can ask a question, why contract? I'm talking of all these examples because connected to the opportunities. So there is an opportunity for a security services agency in large campuses, large plants. Say, we'll do it for you. Your costs are much lower, and you can even work out all the costs. So that's called leveraging a business opportunity. Are we clear? And sometimes you use the opportunity because those resources are available, but you cannot have them permanently. Like I told you, research project staff, you need them to work on your research projects, to run some equipment or operate some instruments, take the readings, report to you, etc. They're not actually in the intellectual part of the research, but they are in the processes of the research. And you don't want that person to be a permanent employee where you are giving provident fund, gratuity, etc., and earned leave and all that stuff, because you find that cost could be higher for you. So you say, I'll take a project staff. Not that you don't give leave. And please don't mistake, just being a project staff doesn't mean the person becomes a slave. That's totally wrong. So there's a clean contract. So you use that opportunity. The resources available in the environment. I have a need. Can I connect? Is the kind of logic that is used. Have you understood the idea of opportunity?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah?
sir.
Okay. Now let me give you one nice example of a threat. I am in IIT Madras. Okay. I am in the Department of Management Studies. I go back a few years, and we had IIM Kolkata, Ahmedabad, Bangalore, in terms of the order in which they were created. And then we had Lucknow, Indore, Kozhikode. And one fine day, the government says that we shall have, and like God said, let there be light, the government of India said, let there be more IIMs. By the way, our country needs these institutions. They are all great institutions. But for me in the Department of Management Studies, it is a threat of a certain kind. Why? Because the creation of new IIMs definitely is going to have an effect on the kind of students, the number and the nature of students who will be applying to my business program. There is going to be an effect on the number and kind of faculty resources who will, or potential faculty position seekers who are going to apply to my department, because you're creating that opportunity in the field. But for me, I mean, the government has created a fair opportunity because we need those kind of national institutions, because there are so many numbers of young people who need good management education and training. So we need good institutions. You can't run it out of a few institutions. That part is correct. You have to take a national angle. But for me sitting in IIT Madras, it is a threat theoretically, because I'm going to get a knock on the kind of students. I'm likely to get a knock on the faculty inputs. I'm likely to get a knock on the project inputs. So if somebody asks you, hey, education, non-competitive sector, I'm sorry, they're bullshitting. They don't know a damn. There is severe competition in education. There is severe competition for faculty. There is severe competition for students. There's severe competition for projects, consulting projects, corporate training projects, executive training, and so on. And there are many factors that those people are weighing. So please realize all this. So the idea of doing a SWOT analysis is very important for us in our pursuit of the mission, in our journey to realize our vision, in our efforts to fulfill objectives and achieve goals. I can understand the connection. So SWOT analysis provides you with an answer to the question, why do you want to do what you want to do? Answer is straight. I want to do this because I'm strong and there's an opportunity. Are we clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll continue with this and we'll leave this session today. Bye.